Good afternoon. I want to thank everybody who joins us today. My name is Ola Tamanova and I'm happy to see everybody in Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform. It's been 10 years of the war and today's day 461 of the full-scale invasion of our homeland by Russian aggressor, and we know that since the beginning of the full-fledged invasion many Ukrainians were forced to live outside. Many Ukrainians are currently staying in Poland, so today's events of ours is dedicated to the report that will tell us about the way the Ukrainian citizens feel in Poland, what they do there, have they found their place there, do they plan on staying, and what were the new challenges that it posed in the Polish jobs market. So our speakers today are Marcin Kolodzejchyk, International Recruitment Director at EWL Migration Platform, Margarita Sytnyk, spokeswoman for the EWL Migration Platform. Dear friends, so Miss Margarita, let's start with you. So how has the portrait of a Ukrainian citizen changed? Have our Ukrainians found an opportunity to adapt in Poland? Do they plan on staying or are they planning on coming back? What does your report say about it? Thank you very much for invitation, for the interest to our report. We are EWL Migration Platform who employs foreigners in Poland, including Europeans, and not only in Poland, in other countries or European Union as well. Back in 2022 we employed 22,000 people, among which are also the refugees. We plan this number to double at least this year. We have a foundation that sends humanitarian aid to Ukraine since 2014. Since the first day of the full-scale invasion, we evacuated people from Ukraine. We have a maternity point working in the biggest railway station in Warsaw, where mothers can come with their children. They may spend nights there, they can get advice, consultation with all kinds of legal aid, with legalization. So starting from 2018, in coordination with the Eastern European Studies Center of Warsaw University, we draw the portrait of Ukrainian migrants in Poland. So we had our last research before the anniversary of the invasion. It was made upon the request of Council of Polish government, and now we present this big report about the portrait of the citizen of Ukraine who currently lives in Poland. So in this research we were able to study the Ukrainians who came to Poland even before the beginning of the full-scale invasion. I'm talking about the economic migrants, but as well those who came to Poland after the 24th of February 2022. And what's interesting, here we compare it with the report that we drew up in 2021, so thus we can understand how the portrait of a Ukrainian citizen who lives in Poland has changed. What are their intentions, sentiments? We questioned 500 Ukrainian adults, 300 of pre-war migrants and 200 war refugees. This relation is because 2/3 of all those Ukrainian migrants in Poland are so-called pre-war migrants and 1/3 is the war refugees. So how has the portrait changed? 67% are women. Almost the number of men fell almost twice, because many men came back to Ukraine to fight for its independence. After the 24th of February, 92% of those coming to Poland were women. Their average age, comparing to the period before the full-scale invasion, is 36 years. The majority of Ukrainians are young, capable adults. The majority are the fraction of such people of in the age of 18 to 25 years increased. It's very good for Polish jobs market, and 4% of this category are people above 65, and majority of those Ukrainians who are currently staying in Poland, they have children. It's about 50%. This number grew almost 5 times compared to a previous research. So all those children, about 70% of them, they study in the Polish education system, but part of the Ukrainian children, they attend Polish schools, but also study online in Ukrainian schools. Talking about the education and building of language, the majority of Ukrainians currently staying in Poland, they have incomplete higher education. This number increased 1/3, as well as those who have professional technical education. It means that the citizens of Ukraine were going to Poland that were not planning to go there before. They're middle class, they have higher education, and the fraction of such people increased. Talking about the wielding of Polish language, 30% state that they speak Polish well or very well, but obviously the percentage of those speaking Polish is higher among those who came to Poland before the beginning of the full-scale invasion. They were studying it and they understand it well. So regarding the employment in Poland, Marcin will tell us. I will be speaking Polish and my colleague will translate for me.
I to, co chciałem podkreślić, i bardzo z tego jesteśmy dumni, to jest nasz wspólny sukces Polaków i Ukraińców, że 78% obywateli Ukrainy przebywających w tej chwili w Polsce pracuje.
Good afternoon. Mr. Marcin will be talking Polish and I will translate, and before I will talk about the employment of the Ukrainians who are currently staying in Poland. And what's most important, what I want to draw your attention to, is the fact that for the time being 78% of the citizens of Ukraine who are currently staying in Poland are currently employed. What's also interesting, please pay your attention that among those who arrived to Poland after the beginning of the full-scale invasion, it's a smaller percent, 71%, but it's still a high percentage of those who are employed.
Znajdują pracę na terenie Polski i tutaj znaczy takim najbardziej popularnym kanałem pozyskiwania pracy pozostaje polecenie znajomych lub rodziny.
We also questioned our respondents what was the way they found the job in Poland, and they said, first of all, most of the respondents, they said that they found a job upon recommendation of their friends or families.
Rekrutacji Ukraińców na polskim rynku pracy są też prywatne agencje zatrudnienia.
And a very important factor, very important institution that helps Ukrainians to adapt in Poland are the private employment agencies.
To w przypadku grupy uchodźców wojennych bardzo znaczący udział w adaptacji na rynku pracy instytucji państwowych i samorządów lokalnych, a także powiatowych urzędów pracy.
What's also important and what is substantially reflected in our data, that among the war refugees there is an increased percentage of those who use the aid of the state agencies, the services on employment that are located in regional administrations.
Respondentów zapytaliśmy też o to, na ile praca, którą wykonują w Polsce, w ich ocenie odpowiada ich kwalifikacjom.
We also questioned our respondents to what extent the work that they do according to their assessment corresponds with their qualification.
Do Polski przed wojną, a tymi, którzy przyjechali po wojnie.
І тут ми
And here we see significant difference between those who arrived in Poland before the full-scale invasion and those who arrived after war.
Przyjeżdżały do wojny. Z tych prawie 70% oceniało, że wykonuje pracę zgodną z własnymi kwalifikacjami, a wśród uchodźców wojennych zaledwie 23% deklaruje wykonywanie pracy zgodnie z własnymi kwalifikacjami, a aż 51% twierdzi, że wykonuje poniżej kwalifikacji.
Among those who came to Poland earlier, pre-war migrants, almost 70% state that they work in correspondence with their qualification and level of education. However, among the war refugees, only 22% responded positively to this question, while 51% stated that the job they're doing is below their qualification level.
Ocena obywateli Ukrainy wpływa na poziom satysfakcji z wykonywanej pracy, który wśród uchodźców wojennych jest niższy niż był wśród osób, które przyjeżdżały przed rozpoczęciem agresji.
і звісно цей факт
And obviously this fact influences the level of satisfaction of Ukrainians with their jobs, with their employment, because among those who arrived before the war, more people were satisfied with what they're doing, and among the war refugees this percentage is lower.
Satysfakcji mierzymy też takim wskaźnikiem NPS, który dla grupy uchodźców wojennych jest wyraźnie niższy niż dla tych ludzi, którzy przyjeżdżali przed wojną. Niemniej, i to też warto podkreślić, on nadal pozostaje wysoki i odsetek jakby takich odpowiedzi mocno negatywnych jest relatywnie niski.
і ми бачимо, що
And here we can observe that among the war refugees, the NPS indicator, what we call it, with the level of satisfaction with their jobs, is lower than among the pre-war migrants. But what's important, this indicator is still comparatively high, regardless everything.
Dotyczy perspektywy pracy za granicą obywateli Ukrainy i tu również obserwujemy bardzo ciekawą tendencję.
і також цікавий
And yet another interesting fact I would like to mention are the prospects for employment of Ukrainians abroad in other countries.
Którzy przyjeżdżali do nas przed wojną, większość, bo aż 55% osób była zainteresowana poszukiwaniem pracy w innych krajach, głównie w krajach Europy Zachodniej.
серед мігрантів, які
Among the migrants who were coming to us before the full-scale invasion, almost 55% declared that they want to look for jobs in other countries as well.
Bardzo ciekawe, te osoby, które przyjechały po rozpoczęciu agresji, z nich aż 86% nie planuje poszukiwać pracy w innych krajach i ewidentnie jakby chcą pozostać, czy jakby na ten okres chcą pozostać w Polsce, no i jak najszybciej wrócić do domu, do Ukrainy.
натомість серед
Meanwhile, among the war refugees, 86% do not wish to look for jobs in other countries. They plan to stay in Poland and for the period that they will be forced to, and they plan to go back home to Ukraine as soon as possible.
Są rozważane przez obywateli Ukrainy jako kierunek migracji, to nieodmiennie na pierwszym miejscu pozostają Niemcy, aczkolwiek widzimy, że wśród uchodźców wojennych ten odsetek, czy ta dominacja niemiecka też wyraźnie spada.
Among the countries the Ukrainians would like to move to and get employed, they're moving from Poland. The first place is taken by Germany, but among the war refugees there is a significantly lower percentage of Ukrainians who wish to leave for Germany.
Ukrainy jakby niespecjalnie mocno się interesowali i tutaj szczególnie mówimy o Wielkiej Brytanii, Stanach Zjednoczonych, Szwecji czy Włoszech.
Meanwhile, the situation is changing with the number of Ukrainians increasing who are interested to live for such countries as Italy, Sweden, United States or Great Britain. This is the new situation which we were not witnessing before.
Aktywnie biorą udział w tej koalicji, która wspiera Ukrainę, no i też otworzyły się tam możliwości dostania się do tych państw.
And we think that it may be possibly related to the fact that those are the countries who support Ukraine very actively, providing military and humanitarian aid, and this is why Ukrainians are so interested in those countries. I will tell you more about the plans of the Ukrainians who want to open their businesses in Poland. These options became more relevant after the beginning of the full-scale invasion because the Poland allowed to open a private business for Ukrainians, but comparing to the previous years, the number of Ukrainians who want to start their business in Poland, it decreased from a little bit about 40 to about 15%. And we connected to the fact that even regardless that many businessmen came to Poland, they relocated their businesses, but still they see Poland as a temporary shelter. This is why this percentage went lower. Talking about the industries Ukraine want to open their businesses in, we don't observe any significant changes. They are traditional services, their traditional sectors as services, restaurants, cafeterias, IT, and so on. But we observe that now there are less Ukrainians who open building or construction companies. It's mostly related to the consequences of pandemics. Then a lot of men came back to Ukraine, and the construction sector is something where the men mostly work, and there is a significant lack of a workforce in this sector. Talking about the material situation, financial situation, how do the Ukrainians assess their financial situation? So 55% of Ukrainians who stay in Poland say that their financial condition is average, and this percentage is bigger, 22% of the war refugees against 14% of the pre-war migrants. And we related to the fact that many people, including middle class, were forced to leave for Poland, somebody who has some financial cushion. So about 1/5 of the citizens of Ukraine, after paying all the bills, they have from 4,500 to 9,000 hryvnias. We calculated as 213 euro per month, so it's about 8,500 hryvnia. More than a majority of the citizens of Ukraine, 56% in total. Here we are take the aggregate number of pre-war migrants and war refugees. They send money to Ukraine, which witnesses that they are well employed and they have this opportunity. So these are the figures, the amounts that Ukrainians send to Ukraine. I would like to say that in year 22, for example, Ukrainians sent the record amount of money to Ukraine, about 15 billion zloty, and a quarter of those about 4 billion zloty were sent from Poland. It's the information from the National Bank of Ukraine. I don't know the details for this year, and Ukrainians still continue this tradition of sending money to Ukraine. At least 170 euro are being sent to Ukraine by the citizens of Ukraine on a monthly basis. About the prospects of residents in Poland, do Ukrainians plan to stay there? Do they plan on coming back? Marcin will tell us more about that.
I też myślę, że pozytywne wnioski, ponieważ jeśli chodzi o osoby, które przyjechały po rozpoczęciu agresji, jakby znacząco spadł odsetek osób, które planują zostać w Polsce na stałe.
Дуже важливе питання.
A very important question, and we have a positive answer to it. We see that there is a lower percentage of those who came to Poland after the beginning of the full-scale invasion. There is a lower percentage of them who plan to stay in Poland.
Rozpoczęciem agresji, a osób, które przyjechały po, widzimy, że znacząco rośnie odsetek osób, które planują albo pozostać w Polsce około roku, albo wrócić w przeciągu kilku miesięcy do Ukrainy.
And we see that if we compare the pre-war migrants with the war refugees have a bigger percentage of those who plan to come back to Ukraine the soonest possible within the year to come.
Które planują, znaczy nie planują wracać do Ukrainy, ale chcą pojechać do innych krajów europejskich, pozostaje relatywnie niski, wynosi 4%.
Meanwhile, the percentage of those who don't plan to stay in Poland and don't plan to come back to Ukraine either, and those who plan to go elsewhere, are only at 4%.
Chęć naszych respondentów do ubiegania się o pozwolenie na pobyt czasowy lub stały w Polsce. I widzimy, że w porównaniu do migrantów ekonomicznych ten odsetek wśród uchodźców wojennych spada.
And also what I mentioned before, it influences the number of those who want to get a residence permit. The percentage of those among the war refugees is significantly lower.
Również do deklaracji dotyczących uzyskania polskiego obywatelstwa. Tutaj wśród uchodźców wojennych ten procent też jest mniejszy.
І також це, звісно,
At the same time, it influences the number of those who want to obtain Polish citizenship, and the percentage of those among the war refugees is significantly lower as well.
Uzyskania polskiego obywatelstwa.
і також
The percentage of those who say mostly no or definitely no regarding obtainment of the Polish citizenship is lower among the war refugees.
Atrakcyjne dla dużej grupy respondentów i dużej grupy obywateli Ukrainy.
тим не менше.
At the same time, we observe that the acquisition of Polish passport is still something that is in demand among the citizens of Ukraine.
Procent osób zdecydowanie chciałoby uzyskać polskie obywatelstwo, a przy tym tylko 10% planuje zostać w Polsce na stałe. Także to też pokazuje, że duża część obywateli Ukrainy chciałaby uzyskać paszport, natomiast niekoniecznie musi to się wiązać z tym, że planują swoją przyszłość z Polską.
Що цікаве,
What's interesting is that among those who want to get the Polish passport, 15%, and those who want to stay in Poland is only 10%, which means that among those who want to get Polish citizenship, there are people who want to obtain it just to have it.
Czynniki, które zachęcają ich do pozostania w Polsce oraz takie, które ich zniechęcają do pobytu w Polsce.
ми також запитали,
We also questioned our respondents about the factors that stimulate them to stay in Poland or to leave Poland otherwise.
Które zachęcają do zostania, do przebywania w Polsce. W pierwszej kolejności tutaj jest posiadanie w Polsce znajomych lub przyjaciół.
серед факторів, що стимулюють
Among the factors that stimulate Ukrainians to stay, the first one is that the first factor is that they have friends in Poland.
Przyjazne nastawienie Polaków do Ukraińców oraz fakt, że jakby jesteśmy takim krajem bliskim kulturowo.
для українців дуже важливо, що
What's also important for Ukrainians is that the Polish treat Ukrainians well and that Poland is the closest cultural neighbor of Ukraine.
Migrantami ekonomicznymi, a uchodźcami wojennymi jest nastawienie do poszukiwania pracy. Dla migrantów ekonomicznych znalezienie pracy w Polsce było takim bardzo ważnym czynnikiem przyciągającym ich do przebywania w Polsce. Z kolei w przypadku uchodźców wojennych ten faktor jest jakby relatywnie mało znaczący.
The significant difference between those who came to Poland before the war and the war refugees is in the fact whether they can find jobs. For the pre-war migrants, that was a very important factor, but now for the war refugees, for those who came after the beginning of the full-scale invasion, it doesn't look so important.
Ukraińców do przebywania w Polsce, to tutaj wyraźnie widać, że dla uchodźców wojennych takim najtrudniejszym czynnikiem jest rozłąka i troska z bliskimi. Tutaj blisko 60% tęskni za rodziną po prostu i też widzimy, że jakby dlatego najprawdopodobniej jak najszybciej chcą wrócić do Ukrainy.
І також
Also, among the factors that impede Ukrainians from staying in Poland, the most important is the factor that the Ukrainians who stay in Poland, they are concerned about their families who stay in Ukraine, and this is why they want to come back to Ukraine as soon as possible.
Relatywnie słaba znajomość języka polskiego wśród uchodźców wojennych, która wpływa na ich jakby komfort przebywania, możliwości adaptacyjne, znalezienie pracy na rynku i to też powoduje, że jakby zniechęca ich to do pobytu w Polsce.
також хочу
I would like also to draw your attention to the fact that, of course, there is a high percentage of those who don't wield Polish language on a proper level, and the bigger percentage is among those who came after the beginning of a full-scale invasion, and it influences their desire not to stay in Poland. They want to come back the soonest possible. Well, talking about the reasons that motivate Ukrainians to come back to Ukraine after the end of the war, the three main reasons that the Ukrainians name are the membership of Ukraine in EU and NATO, increase of the job payment, and opportunity to reunite with the family which stayed in Ukraine, and also reformations in different sectors, in sector of security, education, and so on and so forth. Also, I've presented you the research. We questioned how do Ukrainians who live in Poland support Ukraine, and it demonstrated that more than a half of Ukrainians who stay in Poland, they donate to armed forces of Ukraine. They send aid to their friends who defend Ukraine in the front lines, and they also help their families. So what are the conclusions? What are the key figures and trends that we observed during a study by the EWL and the Center for Eastern European Studies with the Warsaw University? They will be all interested in the context of Ukraine, how to build the social policy, what can we count on, whether those people will be coming back or not. So here are the key trends and key numbers.
Takie wnioski i cyfry, z którymi chcielibyśmy Państwa zostawić, to w pierwszej kolejności zmiana tego profilu płciowego obywateli Ukrainy. Mamy 67% obywateli dorosłych Ukrainy przebywających w Polsce to kobiety w tej chwili.
отже,
So the key figures that we would like to leave for you after this conversation are as follows. The first fact that there was a very serious change to the gender of Ukrainians who stay in Poland. For the time being, 67% are the women.
Ukrainy przebywa w Polsce z dziećmi.
50
50% of the adult Ukrainians stay in Poland with their children.
4% osób to osoby w wieku emerytalnym.
і лише 4
Only 4% 54% of the adult Ukrainian citizens in Poland are above 65 years.
62% ankietowanych zamierza wrócić do Ukrainy w jakby takiej miarę bliskiej perspektywie czasowej.
Більше 62%
More than 62% of those questioned plan to come back to Ukraine as soon as possible.
Procent obywateli Ukrainy zamierza ubiegać się o pozwolenie na pobyt czasowy lub stały w Polsce.
50%
50% of the respondents plan to ask for a residence permit, whether temporary or permanent.
Usług polskiej opieki medycznej. Tu jakby widzimy też wzrost w porównaniu do grupy migrantów ekonomicznych.
і 45%
45% of Ukrainians state that they use the services of the Polish state medicine, and it's a higher percentage than that observed with the economic migrants.
Niezwykle wysoki odsetek, 78% dorosłych obywateli Ukrainy przebywających w Polsce pracuje. Wielki i wspaniały sukces nas obu.
І ще раз
Once again, I would like to stress this huge percentage of Ukrainians who work in Ukraine, 71%. It's a huge success.
4% respondentów rozważało pracę w innych krajach niż Polska.
24% of those questioned were looking for employment outside Poland within the last year.
Pracujących obywateli Ukrainy w Polsce poleciłoby swoją jakby pracę, poleciłoby pracę w Polsce swoim bliskim lub znajomym i też tak jak podkreślaliśmy, ten odsetek spada szczególnie wśród uchodźców wojennych. Ten poziom satysfakcji jest niższy.
і 50%
50% of the citizens of Ukraine employed in Poland would recommend employment in that place where they work to their friends and families, but we would like to emphasize that this percentage is lower among the war refugees and is decreasing.
Pieniądze do Ukrainy.
більше
More than a half of Ukrainians, 54%, sent money from Poland to Ukraine.
Wanych deklaruje, że dzieci, z którymi przebywają na terytorium Polski, korzystają z polskiego systemu edukacji.
70% українців, що беруть
70% of the Ukrainians who stay in Poland state that their children use Polish education system.
Procent respondentów uważa, że dostęp do kursów języka polskiego sprzyja integracji, jakby lepszemu odnajdywaniu się na rynku pracy i jakby funkcjonowaniu w Polsce.
і 48%
And 48% of the respondents state that the easy access to the Polish language courses supports them in their adaptation and improves their situation in Poland.
To dwukrotnie zmalał odsetek mężczyzn przebywających na terytorium Polski, było ich do wojny blisko 60%, w tej chwili to 30%.
що
What's also important is that the percentage of Ukrainian men decreased twice. Before the war it was 60%, now it's 31%.
Bo połowa populacja młodych dorosłych, czyli będących w wieku w przedziale między 18 a 25 lat. To jest 23% w tej chwili.
на полу
The number of young Ukrainian citizens aged 18 to 25 increased one half.
W kategorii obywateli Ukrainy przebywających w Polsce z dziećmi do wybuchu wojny było to właściwie bardzo rzadkie, że obywatele Ukrainy przyjeżdżali do Polski z dziećmi, natomiast po wybuchu wojny ten odsetek wzrósł aż 5-krotnie i to, tak jak mówiliśmy, 50% dorosłych obywateli Ukrainy przebywa w Polsce z dziećmi.
і дуже
What also significantly changed is the number of Ukrainians who stay in Poland with their children. Before it was only 11%, and now this number grew up to 50%.
Odsetek respondentów, którzy planują pozostać w Polsce na dłużej.
і також
And Also, the percentage of Ukrainians who plan to stay in Poland for a longer period decreased significantly.
Bardzo serdecznie dziękujemy. Jeżeli są jakieś pytania, to zapraszamy, na pewno odpowiemy.
На цьому ми
Well, this is how we would like to wrap up the presentation of our research, and we will be happy to answer all of your questions. I would also like to add that all of those figures, and there are even more figures in our research regarding the healthcare system in Poland, so all those figures can be downloaded from our website. This is my contact phone number. I use Telegram, WhatsApp. For those who watch us online, I will send them to you upon your request. Thank you very much, Mr. Marcin, Miss Margarita. I've seen that your research contains a significant number of people who are still unsure. When you were talking about those who decided whether to come back or not, there were 20% of those who are not ready to say either yes or no. So in the same way, when you mentioned the submission of the documents to obtain the Polish citizenship, the number of such people was about 34%, pretty high percentage. What is it related to? Well, really, there was a significant number of Ukrainians who are still unsure about their future. We noticed a number of cases when inside of one family the children want to continue studying in Poland. They already entered Polish universities, but they want to come back to Ukraine to rebuild Ukraine, and their parents want to stay in Poland. We know cases like that. Also, Ukrainians opened their businesses in Poland, even those who came after the beginning of the full-scale invasion, and after the war they will be facing a question whether they are coming back to Ukraine and they continue doing their business in Ukraine, or they stay in Poland, or they live in two countries at the same time. There is really a significant number of people who lost their homes and they want to come back, but they don't know where. Those are the categories of people who will wait until the end of the war, and after that they will decide what to do about it, what decision they should approve, and they all await for the security guarantees. Our previous research in February shows that more than a half of Ukrainians who stay in Poland, they left for Poland within the first 3 months of war. They were the people who were witnessing the most difficult battles, the invasions, the people from the north, from the central and eastern part of Ukraine. They expected to become safe in Ukraine, and only then they will decide whether to come back to Ukraine or not. Dear colleagues, if you have any questions on the floor, please go ahead. Ivan Kosyakin, Ukrinform. Good afternoon. I would ask you about that section, what stimulates Ukrainians to stay in Poland. You mentioned the refugees from the areas of active warfare, so the people who still are hesitating whether to come back or not. But for what I understand, there was not such a significant number of people who said that they have no place to come back to. Do I understand it correct? Can you please repeat your question, because we don't understand it to the full extent. So what I mean is that there was no such a significant number of Ukrainians who said that I have no place to come back to. This is why I choose to stay in Poland for a more extended period. So you did not segregate these categories. Well, we were not asking for reasons, we were just asking whether they want to come back or they want to stay in Poland. So we didn't break it down to categories, but yes, this category contains the people that are still hesitating, or they still decide to stay in Poland due to circumstances like those you mentioned. Dear friends, if you have more questions, comments, anything, please join our conversation. We don't seem to have more questions on the floor. Miss Margarita, once again, please remind us where we can check your research. Well, you can check it at ewl.com.ua. There will be a research in Ukraine. We have a Polish version and an English version. You can come up to me or you can text me, and it will be my pleasure to share this research to you. Thank you for this fundamental work. We're convinced that it will help our government institutions in planning of the further steps as to reconstruction. We understand that it's important for our state to bring those people back to their homes, to their homeland, and we will take maximum effort to make it happen. And I want to appreciate your input. I want to thank all of us spectators. We continue working. I want to thank our armed forces for this opportunity to hold events and broadcasts like this. Let's work together for our victory, and glory to Ukraine. Glory to the heroes.